Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Build. So this week we're coming back to Dale, but we're not actually going to be touching the town. So in case you haven't guessed, that means we're moving on to Erebor itself. We've been faffing around with Dale for far too long. It was a project that I expected to be done with a long time before now. So what I'm doing is this episode, I'm putting it on the back burner, and we're getting into the meat and fish of what this series is named after, Erebor, the Dwarven Fortress. So here it is, the side of the mountain that we basically decided was going to be the entrance to Erebor. And what I'm going to do in this episode is just building basically the main gate and entrance to the mountain itself. Basically, if you want to come into Erebor and you're not going through the secret door, this is going to be the way you get in. This is the front door to Erebor. So to start with, I needed to find out what material I was going to use, and I figured probably stone brick. Stone brick and dark stone brick to make the actual fortress itself. So I came around with some walls and loosely attached them to the mountain, built up, and then filled in the gaps between with some stone brick. Now this entrance is going to be so big that it's kind of a bit of a pointless task putting it down block by block, and so I just used World Edit and the region tool to select regions and turn them into stone bricks. Now I'm using this red wool and black wool to count out the amount of blocks in the wall so that I can get even spacing in the patterns that I put in. And what I wanted was 3 decorative arches at the front, evenly spaced. So using the red and the black wool, I counted out the distance between 3 arches of equal size and tried to make it symmetrical and keep them in the middle. Then once I had that, I began to dig into the stone brick itself, and this is where the arches would go. And once all the arches were in place, or at least once all the walls were dug into, I got rid of that wool at the bottom. Now I've actually filled in the walls of this fortress already by about 3 blocks because I want to dig into it quite deep, not just 1 block but 2 blocks to give us even more depth from this large structure, because it's going to be such a big kind of looming entrance that you're going to be able to see from miles away. I want there to be a lot more depth than just 1 block. And as you can see here, these arches kind of dig in 2 blocks in, and it gives it a bit more depth and detail because it's a larger structure. And now again, the idea was just basically dig into the sides of the walls and decorate those indents with different types of crenellations. And I toyed around with different ideas for how the crenellations would go. And one thing I realized was just plain stone brick looked way too plain. So dark stone brick is what I use on the inside of the structure. Basically, the outside detail will be light stone brick, but the inside core of this fortress is going to be dark stone brick. Then again, coming around the bottom and using slabs to make a kind of walkway around the front. And then what I did was slowly build up the gate for this fortress. Now I'm loosely sticking to how the gate looks in the movies, but there's a couple of differences here and there where I've kind of had to change things because of how Minecraft works, or I've just used my own decisions and my own kind of ideas to make the gate a bit different. But once the first level was almost complete, I started to build up and imagine how I was going to have this gate climb upwards. And it took a long time to wrap around the idea in my head of how I wanted the gate to kind of spiral up the mountain. And you see here that stone brick framework that would become the structure for the gate itself. I wanted to kind of lean back and get thinner as it went up, but also get wider as well and hug the mountain. So just using the region tool in World Edit, I put down stone brick walls loosely attached to the mountain, keeping the symmetry identical as well, making sure I counted the blocks in between where I was building very carefully, because symmetry like that is something you don't want to come back to at the end and find out you've gotten wrong. So I was just measuring up and sizing up regions for me to stick in stone brick structures against the side of the mountain. And you see again here me using red wool to make sure that the gate on the left, the structure we built on the left there, was the same size as the structure on the right and get it the same height and the same depth from the mountain. And again, digging into the sides of these walls slightly and creating a bit more kind of like a bit of an indent that we can turn into dark stone brick. And basically that's pretty much all there is to say about what I'm doing. I mean, I'm building upwards with stone brick and just ever increasingly kind of getting shallower, getting closer to the mountain, but also getting taller and getting ever more looming. Because the one thing I realize is dwarves are kind of short and everything looms over them, but I want them to kind of feel like when anybody comes to the dwarven fortress of Erebor, it looms over them. For once, the dwarves are bigger than the person that's coming to see them. Now here you see me up at the top left, building these kind of archway struts that I've seen exist on buildings in real life, on some of the more gothic structures that I've seen in the real world. And I think they're a cool feature for kind of like a building like this. And here you can see with the slow pan, these kind of archways that help hold up the building. But the separation between them just adds a bit more depth and a bit more detail. It makes it look like a bit more of a busy structure. And they don't exist in the movie version of the gate, but it's something I wanted to add because I thought it added to the feel. And once those were in place, I set about again just digging into the structure, digging into the gate, and adding just a bit more detail. Adding a few crenellations here and there, and in some places just digging into the wall and turning stone bricks into steps to create a kind of just small gap effect. And again, copy and pasting the design from one side to the other, and then just making sure both were identical, or rather symmetrical, and toying around with the crenellations and how they are supported by the wall itself. And then again, building the kind of pattern you see here in the middle. And I want a kind of a fancy pattern here, because this is going to be the focus point of the gate itself. You're going to look up, and this is pretty much going to be the big thing that you see. So I wanted a cool kind of like clock tower style pattern. And I began to dig into the wall you see here to create those patterns and round off the edges with some stone brick steps. And you see here, these aren't smiley faces, they're actually just ridges, circles, and basically just patterns dug into the wall. And that's pretty much what I've been doing. I mean, it's very, very difficult to explain what I'm doing for this build, because basically all I'm doing is building upwards with stone brick and just decorating this fortress as I see fit. Decorating the gate so that it looks cool and looks different. And it's hard to do because it's pretty much just a gate. All this gate really is just a large block of stone brick cut down and chiseled into until it makes something pretty and fancy. Now, one thing we will have to add to, as you can see in here, I'm adding a few more struts down the bottom there to hold up the structure. One of the things I will have to add is a battlements area for the dwarves to come out and look out over Dale at to make sure that they can defend against enemies when they come knocking at the gates, if they ever do. Now again, I've dug out, you can see here, I'm adding the dark stone brick inside the actual gate itself, inside the structure, and now just adding to the detail and tinkering around with the detail. Now what this does remind me of actually is an old kind of gothic cathedral. When I was in Cologne for Gamescom, there's a very famous cathedral there. And this really reminds me of that actually in a lot of ways. It's a very kind of gothic style that I've gone for with this building. And although that's maybe not in keeping with the style of gates that Erebor has, I think it looks cool, and I think it's the perfect overlooking structure for Dale. And now you see me here just adding in those battlements, because the dwarves need to be able to come out onto here, especially since in the movie, they do actually come out onto the battlements of the gate and look at the dragon and see him attack. So this is what this is, a kind of battlements area for the dwarves to come out and defend. Now I'm using slabs for them to walk on and holding the whole area up with upside down stone brick steps. And you can't quite see the detail I'm putting into here, but basically I'm just adding a kind of ridged ramp underneath the battlements to hold it up. And again now to the top to add in some more dark stone brick and to toy around with the detail that I'm putting on the sides of the dwarven fortress. Now originally I tried to get like a dwarven face going on here on the side of the wall, but nothing quite looked like a dwarf face, and I thought, you know what, to hell with it, what I'll do is I'll create a giant hourglass pattern, which is kind of dwarven in itself. It kind of looks like a dwarven rune. And once I was happy with that, I just stuck it on the side, and it's something that I would copy and paste onto the other side of the gate at a later date. Now adding crenellations to the top. But I wanted something more from the crenellations up here. I wanted to add a bit more detail than just the same old plain crenellations all the way around. So for the corner sections at the top here, I made them go a little bit higher, and they almost kind of look like the horns of a crown. and once I was happy with how the horns looked at the corners on the front, I copy and pasted them to the square structures at the back and the sides. And then filling in between those with some more crenellations and digging into the side of the castle, digging into the side of the walls, and putting that dark stone brick in behind. And there you see me copy and pasting that hourglass / dwarven rune style pattern onto the side of the structure. And also adding dark wood for the flooring at the top of this castle because, well, I don't want too much stone brick here. I thought we were at risk of having way too much stone brick on this build. And in truth, maybe we do at the moment. I might come back actually and change how much stone brick we have going on here. But for the time being, I'm just going for the structure and the look of the building itself. Now, once the gate was pretty much complete, I came around the front and I wanted a bridge to get to the gate itself. But what I needed to do as well is also fix the water at the side and the front of this gate. And I wanted to get rid of pretty much all the water out the front, except for some at the side, and then trim off the stone and dirt and the grass down to a manageable level. And then once that was in place, I connected the bridge over to the mainland and started to build down stairs to connect up this bridge and create a kind of shallow and plain entrance to the Dwarven city. Now, I probably will come back to this bridge and change it a little bit, but for the time being, it's just a plain old stone brick bridge with a few dark wood blocks for pathing. And also what I've done is I separated the stairs because these stairs are quite thick. They're about seven or 8 blocks thick. So I wanted to just add a middle and a handrail kind of for people to walk on and hold while they walk up these steps. Now also, one of the key things about the front of Erebor is there are 2 large dwarven statues at least, just holding guard outside the front of the gate. And so what I wanted to do this episode was hopefully get those done, but I didn't end up doing it because I didn't quite have time. So what I will do is I will come back and add in those large stone dwarven statues that can look out at Erebor's enemies and just be menacing and just say, beware, the dwarves in here are pretty hardcore, you do not want to mess with them. So once I put down some bone meal and used the tree tool to add some trees, we were pretty much done with the gate of Erebor. Oh man, and look at it looming over Dale like that. It's a really kind of awesome and impressive sight. As we come through the moat here, come through the gate, you can see it just leaning out from the cliff and just imposing on the city of Dale. So that's been it, but let's build Erebor. And we finally actually built something of Erebor itself. We haven't been building Dale this episode, we've actually been building the gates to Erebor. And I've had a lot of fun doing this. So hit like and favorite and subscribe if you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time when we might go back to Dale, or we might go inside the mountain itself and start building Erebor. But until next time, take care.